Yo, check out my website, www.theclowntimes.net. That's clown spelled with K as you see here. As you see, here are my rants here. I'll be more and more regular in posting rants in the future. You see what I have going on here. Also, you can also get your merch here at www.cafepress.com. Search for the Clown Time Sports. You see here I have sweatshirts, hoodies, baby gear, mugs, t-shirts. So just come on over and grab yourself some merch. Welcome to tonight's ACC preview edition of the Clown Podcast, high level version that is. Please continue to check me out on YouTube. Whether you like what I'm saying or agree what I or my guest has to say tonight, just comment anyway. Like, share, subscribe, most importantly, because in any event, you'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did. And also, please continue to check me on Facebook as well. Under just do a search for the Clown Time Sports, you'll be able to find me there as well. So I said ACC. I said ACC preview, a very high level ACC preview, but we're going to talk more about Florida State and their foolishness, as well as what's going on with Cal and Stanford with the expansion stuff. Like you guys know who my guest host is. He's from the All Sports Discussion ACC Sports blog. Please check him out there because he and his partner Okie Smash are very good and very deeply plugged, and deeply connected. So Jeff Fan is back in the house. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Scott.
Good.
Glad to be on.
Thank you. And we're going to be playing Speed Racer because we're kind of crushed for time, but which is all good because we'll be talking more ACC next week, so we'll be more in depth then. But anyway, I had to bring you on to discuss what's going on with Florida State and their foolishness right now. They claim they're gonna have some by the 14th, which was yesterday, and surprise, nothing happened. They're still in the conference because of this thing called the grant of rights, which still many people do not understand. Now, I don't know if they're going to be in the conference for the long haul, 10 years, like 10, 15 years from now, since we got how many more years? 13 more years in this bad boy. So
Yep.
I think the bridge has been burnt, but nevertheless, they ain't going anywhere anytime soon. Jeff, as an ACC fan, I know you have to be embarrassed by Florida State's behavior.
Well, I mean, they've made it clear where they're upset. But the thing is every ACC school is dealing with the same thing, and what they're doing really isn't accomplishing much because they're not gonna get additional revenue from the conference, for the TV ratings or whatever. I mean, Wake Forest was putting out statistics of how they were, one of the highest traffic schools this year too. So I mean, any numbers they put together like that, are not going to change anyone's opinion. The SEC and Big Ten know that if they did invite Florida State, that or anyone else in the what's left of the Pac-12 or Big 12 or ACC, they would probably take an invite. So I mean, kind of repeating it over and over again, this doesn't really accomplish very much because you're in the conference right now. We know that they're dissatisfied with the revenue. I mean, even you and I will admit that's a problem for the ACC. They got to work on revenue. Then that should be Jim Phillips' number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 priority. But I just keep repeating it, every week. It's not helping anything, and it's not a good look for them because we know it already, and now it's just a matter of like, hey, we know that they want to try to get the revenue up. We know it's a problem. We know they're unhappy. But you're in the ACC right now. Another year's past. They're going to be in there through the duration of this year, and if you're being realistic, it's probably going to be at least closer to the end of the decade. So I mean, what we're finding out is that the media networks are tapped out.
Right.
They don't have any more money. I mean, there was an article today on CBS Sports that basically said that the SEC and Big Ten have no interest in expanding right now.
That's
We
right.
saw what happened with Oregon and Washington. Fox paid them half price to join their league. And if Florida State or anyone else were to join one of the two conferences, they're going to take a massive hit.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, the Big 12 expanded by four Power Five teams and did not get another penny to their contract. These
Right.
networks, they're tapped out.
Right.
So they're not going to pay more, another, $70 million for Florida State. And if they probably come in pairs, so we'll say Florida State and Clemson. They're not going to pay 50 million dollars just to have those two teams added to the SEC or the Big Ten.
I think to your point about the Big 12, a lot of people misunderstand the fact that with those four teams joining, um, yeah, four teams, that they assume people erroneously assume that ESPN gave them so much more money because Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah are getting a full cut of the Big 12 contract. Which what happened was Brett Yormark, another shrewd move by that commissioner.
Yeah,
Like I
for
said,
sure.
he's the commissioner of the year, if not the decade, for his moves. Um, he put in the contract that if they were to take another Power Five school, that a Power Five school would be guaranteed to get a full cut from ESPN and Fox. So that's another great move, which is why like because Yormark had an eye for the Pac-12 because he was looking to do the same what the Pac-12 should have done to the Big 12 way back when. That's kill the conference. So
Yeah.
that's what he did. But yeah, man, Florida State, this thing hurts on a lot of levels because, as you probably know and listeners know, I grew up a Florida State football fan because my mom's family was from Tallahassee, Florida, where my great grandmother used to live. You could see the Florida State's campus from the hill where she lived on. We used to go there a lot, like my dad would run the track, and we would be on campus there as kids, watching my dad run, sometimes run with them. So my allegiance to Florida State football goes back over 40 years. I'm aging myself, but still over 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. The very first college football T-shirt I ever bought, going back to Bobby Bowden days, was Florida State. You know,
Right.
was a Florida State T-shirt. I mean, I love the tomahawk chop. I mean, it's a great school. Wonderful tradition. I mean, and nobody faults them at all, for trying to do what's best for them. That there's not a single person in the world I would say anything is wrong with that. They have to look out for themselves, just like
Right.
everyone else does. But just the point of just repeating yourself week after week, I don't really see what it accomplishes.
Yeah, and the one last thing about Florida State, man, is that, and I could go on about the fans still having no clue about what the grant of rights is, because he keeps saying over and over and over again, they'll figure out a way out of this. They'll figure out a way to get out of it next year. I'm like, dude, just shut the hell up. You don't know. I wish people would just Google grant of rights, and they say talk about the Big 12 a lot for some reason. Don't they know? Didn't they know that the ACC modeled their grant of rights after the Big 12s, which is why Texas and Oklahoma had to wait till like a year early to get out of it because they knew that was pretty ironclad. They knew it would be costly. So I just wish people would just do their homework instead of just blow over it and sound like an idiot. I'm turning blue in the face by just talking about it every stinking time, but people still have no clue what grant of rights are, and they just I'm just doing it. But anyway, one last thing, before we do the shout out to my sponsors. Stanford. Speaking of Florida State, Stanford and Cal. They were apparently this close to get to the ACC. They fell short by one vote. Florida State, Clemson, UNC, and NC State are the four detractors. They need 12 out of 15 to pass. Notre Dame is one of the ones who voted for it. For some reason, they have full vote, even though they're not in the conference for football, which is baffling. So I'll get the Florida State's role. I mean, Florida State, Notre Dame's role in a minute. But I kind of vacillate back and forth between the value that Stanford and Cal would add because Stanford and Cal had apparently higher viewership last year than all all but four of the ACC schools, which coincidentally, like all four are the ones who voted against those two joining. Um, and the thing is that I still struggle to find the value because I don't think either of them would add more to the contract. Otherwise, it would have been in by now. So, how crazy is the fact that the time that we're in, that college conferences are just saying screw geography or regionality when it comes to this type of thing and bringing Cal and Stanford on. I thought the ACC dodged a huge bullet and not allowing those schools to come in.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting now because in a vacuum or any other year, if you were to say, okay, Stanford and Cal proposal to join the ACC, it would be shot down instantly. It doesn't make any sense on so many levels from geography to, well, basically geography, which is the big thing. I mean, you're over 2,500 miles from most of the ACC. And I guess Notre Dame is the closest. It's still like, is that still 2,500 miles or something crazy?
Yeah,
And the only reason this is even a consideration is because they're available and because, all kind of common sense has went out the window with realignment. I
right,
mean, there's just no common sense to it at all. But the one reason why it could have made sense is, I mean, we don't doubt, Florida State's sincerity of wanting to move on, or that other teams' programs would move if those Big Ten and SEC invites came, and you're down to just a few years left on a grant of rights, that something would happen. So the reason that you might make a play for a Stanford and Cal is just for sheer numbers, because you get the 16 teams or 17, um, with you get this that 16, 17 teams, and three or four programs leave your conference, you're still going to be really, really viable. And then you can, then you pick up a Memphis or UCF or USF, Tulane maybe, and you still have a viable conference, that's still going to be very relevant. That would be the one reason that I was, thinking it could pass. But I mean, just in a vacuum, unless there's a big financial gain, which doesn't seem to be the case,
right.
or I think they would have voted for it. Maybe my estimate is maybe because of the ACC network, might have been able to increase, value maybe by 2 to 5 million, and that's not worth it enough for the schools to travel across country and the hassle of the Olympic teams. I mean, I think they could have made something work by just having Stanford and Cal in football, because with that it would have been a lot more doable, and say, hey,
Right.
we'll take your football, but your Olympic sports should probably find a West Coast conference. And I still don't think it's 100% dead, because they haven't officially said no. And when you're one vote short, there could
Wow.
still be some back talking or whatever, but it looks pretty unlikely at this point.
Just take that dog out back and shoot. I mean, it's a bad idea. So anyway, I'll continue more on that conversation in a moment. Give a quick shout out to our sponsor, BetUs.com, right quick. So listen up, sports bettors, your favorite sports book. BetUS.com is back for their 30th year of NFL action. It's with the industry's rather biggest sign-up bonus up to 200%. BetUS offers their members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, UFC, and MLB. So if you look for live in-game betting, incredible odds for daily odds, boosters, props, and parlays, they have them. And how about fast payouts and exceptional one-on-one customer service? They have that too. So log into BETUS.com for 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BET-US. Use the promo code TKT for the Klown times as well. BetUS.com. What a game begins. All right. So speaking of continuing the conversation here, Notre Dame, mentioned them earlier. Yeah, so I sometimes wish, well, I wish all the time that Jim Fields and the ACC will stop allowing themselves to be bullied by Notre Dame. Now, they're apparently is the biggest voice behind Cal and Stanford joining. I believe that's because they want Stanford to be a Power Five property so that it could be enticing for the next negotiation with NBC, which we mentioned about the networks dried up money on the market. Good luck with that, Notre Dame. And also the fact that they're trying to do all that. If I'm Jim Fields, I'd say this: you want Stanford and Cal, even though Cal is damn near bankrupt in the athletic department, and Stanford doesn't exactly move the needle. I'll tell you what. We'll let those two join. We'll vote for those two rather, but only if you join. But if you don't join, since you play Stanford every year, if you don't join, nah. Moving on.
Yeah, that was kind of funny because we finally found something this summer with the realignment topic that united every ACC fan. Florida
I
State,
know, right?
Wake Forest, Boston College, Clemson, everybody was united in thinking like Notre Dame, shut up. You know, you don't get a voice. I don't. I mean, it was common knowledge that they had a vote, so that didn't shock me. But
Sure.
trying to hear them, advocate for Stanford and Cal is like you're not swaying anybody's vote. Nobody's, just be quiet. Go and stay independent.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really believe in what you're saying, and in principle, I actually agree with what their AD said, Jack Swarbrick, when he said that programs like Stanford and Cal, universities like that should not be playing lower division, athletics. And I agree with
He's
that.
correct. He's absolutely correct.
That is
He's absolutely
correct.
correct.
But
Yeah.
hey, if you really believe that, be a pillar in college athletics and say, hey, we believe in this so much, we're going to join the ACC if you invite Stanford and Cal. And that would have flipped that vote in a heartbeat. And
Yesterday. Yeah.
yeah, yesterday. And I would have had more respect for Notre Dame than any college athletic program in America if they were just to say like, all right, we believe in the collegiate model, whatever, and we're going to do what's right for Stanford and Cal, and we're going to join the ACC, and now you vote them in. I would have just been floored and so impressed by it. But Notre Dame does what's best for Notre Dame, and I mean, I kind of admire them in a way that they're staying true to their independence as long as they can. But yeah, that one united all ACC fans and saying, yeah, okay, we don't want to hear from you, Notre Dame.
Well, let me just say this, man. We'll close the show on this, man. A couple of things. For one, um, if you if you're Clemson, if you're Florida State for sure, but if you're also Clemson, maybe North Carolina, what would you rather be? Well, just focus on Clemson and Florida State. They're the bigger brands. What would you rather be? Would you rather be with the suspended 12-team playoff? Would you rather be having a far better chance, a 90% chance of being a regular participant in the college football playoff, or would you rather be much richer and say the SEC, getting your brains beat in on a week-to-week basis in the SEC, or have little to nothing in common with the Big Ten schools, even if you were to become AAU certified and be in the middle of the pack, if not upper echelon pack, but have a little to no chance of competing for a national championship. I would have the path of the least resistance because you get more exposure. You get paid anyway for being in the college football playoff. But what do you think with that, man? Or am I crazy?
No, I don't think so. Not at all. I mean, the gap is a real thing. There's no question about that, and it
Sure.
has to be addressed. Um, but just for what you said, the argument about having access to the playoffs, the path of least resistance, at the moment, that's what I would choose. At least for a few more years. I
Right.
mean, you always can say, "Hey, we've got to make more money." and
Right.
that opportunity becomes available, we're going to think about moving. That's totally fair thing to say, but
Right.
it's not going to become apparent in the next, 2 or 3 or 4 years. And so why are you going to put yourself through that kind of legal battle that you're going to be dealing with to get out and then lose that potential access? I mean, there's right now you're going to be, if you recruit well, you're going to be in the top 12 and get into the playoffs and having that kind of access. But if you make that move, there's also the potential you basically just become Nebraska. Anybody heard from Nebraska since like
Great point.
2009?
Great point.
I
Great
mean,
point.
they
Yes.
were the blue blood of blue blood college football programs, and they haven't been heard from in about 15 years. Disaster of a program. Um, and I mean, that for me, especially like growing up, Nebraska was like must see TV. If
Yes,
they
they
were if
were.
they were playing back in the 90s with, Tommy Frazier and Tom Osborne and those teams, that was must see. Now, I don't even know where Nebraska plays, you know.
That's a shame. Their biggest rival now is
Yeah, their
Iowa.
biggest. I mean, now you just kind of look and say, "Oh, well, Nebraska lost again." So,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's not worth challenging something that's 13 years long to lose that ability to get into the playoffs. Now, if you're down to like 5 or 6 years, or you're closer to the end of the decade, and Jim Phillips hasn't come up with anything to reduce that gap, I think he has to probably reduce it in somewhere around half, from 30
Mhm.
to 15, and then it's manageable. At that point, then it's like, okay, we need to do something, because it's just, it's unsustainable to keep going like this. And you can do all these things in the background. You can be researching your way out of the grant of rights while still working with the ACC and giving your programs the best opportunity to go to the playoffs. I mean,
Mhm.
now there is a chance, if your team reaches the playoffs, you're going to get a bigger cut of that. That part the ACC did vote for. So, I mean, if it were me, I wouldn't go trying to look for a way to challenge it with all these years on it. I would be looking at still I would be looking at it. I think anybody has to,
Well, you got to do your
but
due diligence, correct? Yes.
I would be targeting, something closer to the end of the decade if that gap didn't close. And if they did close the gap, then maybe you can make it to 2036 before it gets challenged. But, at the end, it's all going to come down to whether Jim Phillips, they can only blame Swafford for so long.
Right.
If you have 4 5 years to work on it, and on that, I think it's a fair criticism to say, hey, what's your plan, Jim Phillips? We still haven't heard anything.
Right.
But I kind of agree with you, Scott. To me, it would not be worth it to challenge it at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And for next week, we're going to get into what and realignment, conference realignment, what if discussion on what if the ACC took two other schools instead of boxing themselves into this quandary that they're right now with Stanford and Cal. I'm gonna say that for next week. But until then, please continue to like, comment, share, subscribe to to the YouTube channel. And one last thing, Jeff, where can they find you on social media?
All right. You can find me at Talking ACC Sports, blogging on the ACC at allsportsdiscussion.com. I mean, it's at the forefront, realignment, so we do mention it, but football season's right around the corner. We know that the ACC is going to be here, through this year, and so I'm ready to just get the season started, and we can start talking about actual games.
Right. Yes. And I can't wait. And I can't wait. And also, yeah, your great website, All Sports Discussion as well. Everything's laid out for everything, all the things ACC is laid out there. It's a great read. Y'all check it out, please. Until next time, thank you for tuning into this podcast. We'll see you again next week with some more ACC talk and preview of the upcoming season. Till then, peace and hair grease. Take care.
Thanks. Have a good one, Scott.
You too.